for a nice presentation and a nice discussion afterwards as well. And we'll hand the floor over to James Burk, who is well, what is it you are for? It's for the Mars Society now, anyway. Having been vice president for the Moon Society, so I think you should be in a good position to talk about collaboration between the two heavenly bodies. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you, everyone, for. I'm really impressed that this conference is going so well. I'm really thrilled that this is still going. You know, I helped get this series restarted back in 2020 with the help of Michael Mealing and Philip Kroom and James Golston and others at the time. And so I'm just so thrilled that you guys are still doing this event. It's going really awesome. I've been listening a little bit yesterday and today. And so just thank you guys all for putting this on. I'm very happy to be here, very thrilled to be here. As Nicholas mentioned, I was a past vice president of the Moon Society. I actually was one of the founding officers back in the year 2000. I was vice president back then, and then I was vice president again from 2018 until 2021, when I got the opportunity from Robert Zubrin to become the full-time executive director at the Mars Society, our first paid staffer ever. And I've now been in that role for 2.5 years. In December, it'll be 3 years now. And I'm happy to report that we've had a lot of accomplishments in the last couple of years that I think the Moon Society could benefit from. So let me pull my slides up. I've got a little presentation to show you guys here. And, you know, like I said, you know, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, that we've been able to get started in the last couple of years, or restarted in one case of the Flashlight Station. And I'm really thrilled to talk to you guys all about that. I am a founding member of the Moon Society and a lifetime member. I actually just became a lifetime member recently. And you know, I'd love to, you know, someday come back and help out more as well. But, you know, right now, for a lot of reasons in 2021, I had to step down and really focus on this role full time at the Mars Society, and I'm really glad I did, because we were able to accomplish a lot. The biggest opportunity for collaboration I want to talk to you guys about is utilizing the 2 analog research stations we have, okay? And even though they are Mars related, they have Mars in their names, there are many opportunities for lunar research at those places, and we've done lunar research before. As a matter of fact, Peter Koch, you know, past president of the Moon Society, once commanded a lunar analog mission at the MDRS in Utah. And so the Moon Society could do that again, but there's many other things that they can do on a smaller scale to utilize the opportunities of these 2 stations. So let me get into that, and I'll talk a little bit more about some other opportunities too. So this is not a computer CGI rendering of humans walking on Mars. This is a photograph of our Mars Desert Research Station in Utah, and we've been operating that now since the year 2002. So 23 field seasons we've had in Utah. And up in the Arctic, we just brought a crew back. Just brought back crew 16. So my slide here is actually out of date now. We've now sent 16 crews to Devon Island. And as of now, as of this crew and the last crew last year, that station is now fully reactivated. It's like a brand new station now up there in the Arctic. We've got everything scrubbed down. We've got all the generators and other equipment working. The analog suits are in good condition. We're actually going to develop a new set of those soon as well. But that station's ready to go for a lunar analog mission. I'm also happy to report that all of the programs that the Mars Society has are all self-funded at this point. So the Flashline Cruise, the MDRS, our University Rover Challenge, all those things are self-sustaining now. So all those programs are going to continue on into the future. So we can all do multi-year planning around those being there. So, we're also working with the global analog community. There's analogs all over the world, not just the two that the Mars Society operates. There's analogs in Europe. There's one called Lunaries in Poland that actually has a lunar focus as well as a Mars focus. The High Seas analog in Hawaii primarily is focused on the moon. And there's other analogs like Chill Ice in Iceland, which is actually in a lava tube, highly relevant to a lunar analog settlement, future lunar settlement. We're developing new analogs in Australia and Mongolia that definitely also could be utilized for lunar analog missions. As a matter of fact, out in Utah at the MDRS, we actually have some lunar terrain you could go visit on an EVA. So I'll talk a little bit about that later in the mission or in this conversation. But here's the last couple crews are on this slide that we went up to Arctic with. On the left is the crew of 5 that last year reactivated the station. We hadn't been there for 7 years. So there was a lot of things we had to do to kind of make sure everything was working. We brought up some new ATVs. We brought up a new generator. We brought up a new solar panel and solar power system and a huge battery that the crews could use. We also brought up Starlink. We now have Starlink at both stations, which is a high bandwidth internet connection. So you can imagine all the awesome science you can do with that. We also pay attention to mission rules about having a delay built in. If we have a crew on Mars, they're not going to be able to have real-time communication with people back on Earth. Someone on the moon would. There's only about a 1 or 2 second delay on the moon. But for Mars, it's about 15 minutes sometimes. So we have mission rules for not using real-time communication with Starlink. But other than that, it's available as a research tool for both stations now. Up in Flashline, we've been operating up there. So some of the key insights we've had for the last 24 years we've been up there. It's right next to an impact crater called the Houghton crater, which is one of the best preserved impact craters in the world. There's only a few of those in the whole world. And that's a great lunar terrain to explore. And there's lots of scientific reasons that scientists go up there currently and have been going up there for many years to look at how that impact affected the local environment, to look at extremophiles and other fossils that are around that area. And so also, that's a great place for radio astronomy and in general astronomy because it's so isolated. Now, the challenging parts of it is costly to get up there. So right now, a crew seat for the Flashline mission is about $20,000. And mostly that is paying for the flights to get up there. We are working to bring down that cost. And there are some ways we did the flights this year that were different than last year that were an improvement. So we hope that next year when we have another crew or two go to the Arctic, that the ticket price is a little cheaper than $20,000. But right now, that's a good amount to make sure that we have a good science crew, that we have institutional backing with some of the crew members. So it's been a really good strategy to do the missions that way. And that's the way we've been able to make it a sustainable program where now we're doing it every year, and we're planning to do it every year now moving forward. And then we have the MDRS in Utah and some of the key insights there. We've had over 300 crews now in MDRS, over 2,000 crew members. 4 of those have become astronauts. Jessica Watkins, Cyan Proctor was a commander multiple times, Kelly Girardi, and now Shauna Pandya is about to fly to space on Virgin Galactic. And she's been a commander there multiple times. And so, going through MDRS, you now have a 1 in 500 chance of becoming an astronaut. Those are pretty good odds. It's much better than applying for NASA. We are launching a journal for analog research, and that'll help elevate the science we're doing, give people an opportunity to publish the papers that they come up with on those crews. And we're also participating with some of the other analogs in a program called World's Biggest Analog. And the World's Biggest Analog is designed to have a set of crews stay at all of the stations simultaneously and have coordinated science between them. And that mission will happen in 2025. and we're participating in that. I'm actually the chair of the education team inside the world's biggest analog, and we're also contributing to the crew studies or the crew standards and safety standards. Sorry, I kind of butchered that. Safety standards and also analog standards that we're developing for all space analogs through the WBA. So we've been a key participant. We're not leading either of those two projects, others are, but we've been a key participant in making sure that our voice is heard as the organization that runs the first analog ever and the one that's the most prominent MDRS with the most crews. It's important that we have a voice in those efforts, and we have, and it's been great. It's been great working with those teams. One of the key insights we've learned actually about doing analog research is that women do better at this type of work. Women are often able to communicate better, able to problem solve a little bit more rationally, not charging off and doing stuff like men often do. I mean, obviously there's differences with individual people, but in general, if you're going to make, generalizations about an entire gender in some of these studies, women have done better at analog missions than men. And so we've had all women crews before. The crew I commanded was last year, in May of last year, crew 261 was made up of 5 women, 2 men. We didn't really plan it that way. It just kind of happened with the crew members we kept adding. We wanted to have people do a large body of experiments on this mission. And so we actually had 20 experiments. This was the list of them here. And I'm going to talk about a couple of them that are relevant to lunar studies, which is the EVA monitor that we were able to develop. But as you can see, like just looking at this list here, there's a couple things that are like specific to Mars, like the Mars Tumbler robot. But a lot of this stuff would work has relevance to the moon and is helping us get closer to the moon as well. So don't think of what we do as exclusively focused on Mars. There's a lot of opportunities for general space research in what the Mars Society does. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this really cool system we'd set up as a prototype. And now the MDRS is operationalizing what we did through a new project called EVA Link. But what we were able to do during our mission was take some Garmin devices, some just off-the-shelf Garmin InReach devices. It kind of looks like a little tiny flip phone. It's a satellite device that has GPS, but what it also has is you can send messages and you can use GPS positioning in real time to have something like this, which is an EVA situational awareness monitor that is built using Google Maps, but has an overlay of our EVA map on top of it. But what we were able to do with this was this was kind of a breakthrough. We didn't need to have radio comms with the crew the whole time that they were out, that they left the station. So as you may know, like when we do these analog simulations, it's 2 weeks in Utah or maybe a little bit longer up in the Arctic. And part of that time we're in the simulation protocol where we're actually simulating working on Mars or the moon. And so that means that if we're going to go outside the HAB, we have to put on a spacesuit. And we actually plan those out. We call those EVAs. And so usually the night before, we're going to plan out, okay, we're going to gear up and we're going to go out about 3 kilometers and go explore this canyon system, or we're going to go north a couple kilometers and take some soil samples, or we're going to go fly drones. So those were some of the things we did during my mission. We actually did 19 EVAs in 12 days, 12 sols, which was a lot. That means we did 2 a day oftentimes. And everybody on the crew, all 7 crew members, were able to do multiple EVAs. Each person was able to be the EVA leader at one point. But what was great about this system was it allowed us to be safer. There's a lot of times when you're using the radios at MDRS, you go north on the main road there, and you go past this hill, and you're cut off from the HAB. Nobody in the HAB can hear you over the radio. And so it's a real safety issue. That's why we have to plan out how long our EVAs are, because if the crew doesn't come back, it's an automatic search and rescue situation. If you don't have any radio communications and they don't come back at the appointed time, it's an emergency. And there's been lots of false alarms when that's happened, you know, and mission support often would get, you know, super stressed at crews when they lose radio communications. So this system was able to establish situational awareness to everyone back in the hab and everyone with mission support, so that even if we lost radio comms, we knew everybody was safe. We knew they were on nominal trajectories to where they meant to go in their plan. And this system could also send back little messages, little text messages that we would see on the map. And so this was a great system. What we're doing now is we're taking, instead of using these Garmin devices that are kind of expensive, that require a subscription, they use satellites. Instead of having those, we're actually using this other system that's an open source radio platform called LoRa. So LORA radio. And the actual hardware reference platform is this LilyGo device you see in the bottom left. Also, the one I'm holding there is another kind of platform. It's just a single board with an antenna. You know, it's a little single chip board with an antenna, but it has a battery, and it's basically a fully self-contained little network node with a processor on it. You can almost think of it like a Raspberry Pi with one specific app it's been developed for. So what we would do is each crew member would have one of these on them. They would have this little LilyGo in their pocket of their EVA harness, and it would create this mesh network around the crew and back to the hab. And the farther we went out, we could drop these like breadcrumbs, and it would make this mesh network and send the coordinates back. And so you can see that yellow and blue line, those were two different EVAs we did using these devices. And it, just like the Garmin's, it kept track of where we were. What's also great about a system like this is you could play back an EVA later. You could take all the position information. You could take back the crew's radio calls if you've recorded those. You can get drone footage, other photos they took while in the EVA, and you could make a whole playback of an EVA, like as a YouTube video with all this information, and kind of see how an EVA really is like. Even though, I mean, it's a fantastic experience to stay at one of the stations and go out on an EVA. It feels just like you're an astronaut, and it's very similar activities to what astronauts do. So, you know, when we were doing that for, you know, a couple of weeks, we really felt like we were on Mars. We didn't feel like it was a simulation. We kind of forgot it was a simulation. So a system like this, highly relevant as well to the moon. You can see there's one of the repeaters we put up on a hill to extend the range. We now have this system operational at MDRS. We're able to have every crew use these little LoRa radios, and they're passive. They just put in the pocket and the map works. They don't have to, the crew doesn't have to do anything. It's a really cool system. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that as just an example. Let me talk about a couple other programs the Mars Society has. This is Mars VR. This is a digital twin of our Utah station. I've been working on this for about 7 years with a team here in Seattle and mixed reality. And this is a great system because it allows you to train on all the things we do at the station. You can learn how to put on a spacesuit. You could go grow plants in the green hab. You can go get soil samples and bring them back and analyze them. Now you can even drive the rovers in this. So this is, there's multiple versions of this we have. You can find out more information at marsvr.com. Someday I'd love to make a version of this for the Moon Society. We have the University Rover Challenge. That's an event, happens once a year in June at the MDRS in Utah. And that's teams from all around the world come to compete in that. Last year, or last June, just, you know, last month, we had 36 teams from around the world. Each one was a different university. They had their little Mars rover they built, and they brought it and they competed with it. And Poland won this year. Last year, West Virginia Mountaineers won. So that's a great opportunity for folks that are interested in learning about rovers or just partnering with the university to help them do this. The Mars Ambassador Program is something I set up with James Melton. It was one of my first things that we set up as when I came on as executive director. This was to be our main outreach program to train people up to go talk about the Mars Society and our projects in their different communities, kind of like what I'm doing right now. You know, we have people that go out and talk about the Mars Society at different events to get people aware of what we do. So we now have over 50 ambassadors, and they're all around the world. We have an ambassador in Pakistan, we have ambassadors in the UK and Europe, and China as well. So, and all over the US, of course. So this is a great program. You know, this would be a great program for the Moon Society to do, have a lunar ambassador program and get volunteers. And this is a great leadership pipeline for us too. Our podcast hosts came out of the ambassador program, Ashton Zeff, and now she's running the ambassador program. And so we hope other people in our ambassador program will have opportunities as well with other things we do. Finally, I've tried to spend a lot of time on education projects in the last couple of years. We started doing a high school engineering competition every summer, and we've done three of those now, and we've actually had two other competitions in that program that happened at different schools. So that's a great program for high school age kids from 13 to 19. They design a Mars mission, and they work together to write a paper and to debate against other teams their design. The first cohort we had was fantastic. We're going to publish a book with their papers as well as some of the later ones pretty soon. But we found that that's a great program as a summer STEM camp kind of program. We're also working on materials, K through 12 curriculum that teachers could use. We're working on rover kits that high school robotics teams could make use of. And we're also partnering with a company in India called Walla Books, and they make paper-based books and other art materials that could be used for science education. And what's great about their materials is they cost about $1 per student per year. So this is great for developing countries, and we really hope to roll out materials like that widely. I'd love to be able to go to a foundation here in the US that gives out STEM dollars and say, you know, if you give us $50,000, we can reach 50,000 students. And with a program and materials like that, I think we can eventually. So those are some of the things we're working on at the Mars Society. In the past, we also worked with the Moon Society on Marspedia and Lunarpedia, and those are still out there. You know, those we definitely still need help with Marspedia and Lunarpedia. We need technical support, but also people to contribute content. And these have been great resources. I mean, Marspedia, you know, there's a lot of information in there now. We're using it for a lot of other things too. Like we have some of the early crew reports from the MDRS are now in here. We actually pointed NASA to this recently when they were asking for some of our past crew reports. I actually gave them some Marspedia URLs to look at. So this is definitely something we can work together on in the future as we have in the past. Mars Society, we also started the Mars Technology Institute this year. We were able to do a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised $150,000 towards the Mars Technology Institute. And we're hoping that there will be research teams and breakthroughs that we work on that also have relevance to the lunar projects too. So keep an eye on this. We're going to announce more things on this at our conference. Our conference is August 8th to 11th at University of Washington in Seattle. But we also will have that live streamed and online, just like this event is live streamed and online. So I hope to see you there. If you're a Mars Society active member, you'll get a link to join this, or I hope to see you guys in person at the conference. But we'll be making more announcements about the MTI, Mars Technology Institute, as well as other things at the conference. So I think that's the end of my my half hour there. If you guys have any, or at least a little bit of time left for questions, happy to take those and happy to continue the discussion.
Yeah, and we do have, as usual, Marutha.
Hi, James. I have a question. I wrote it down so that I don't make mistake. So
Marutha, good to see you.
Hi, James. Great to see you. Hope to see you in the conference. You were in the leadership team in the beginning of Moon Society and Mars Society. So what would be your suggestions if we are interested in in opening a new analog station in a new country, for example, Bangladesh or
Mhm.
maybe Hawaii, what do you need? Like operating cost, office people?
Well, there's a lot, quite frankly, to setting up an analog. Um, and we're working actively right now with Australia and Mongolia chapters at the Mars Society to do this. Both of those are multiple year projects. What you need the biggest thing, there's three things you need. Okay. You need number one, you need government or organizational support from someone. So for both of our stations, we have support from the state of Utah, BYU. We have support from the government of Canada, the Crown Land Department, and the Nunavut Tribal Council, which we're up in Nunavut in the Arctic Circle. That's tribal land. So we get our water and science and land permits through them. Actually, land permit, I think, is through the Crown, but the next time we get it is going to have to be through them. It's a 5-year permit. So that number one is you need to have the location, and usually it's public land in our cases. And so we're getting support and sponsorship from these institutions. And that's not trivial to do. Like, we have to maintain those relationships. We have to do what they ask us to do to maintain the permits. In some cases, there's fees involved. Not huge fees, but some cases there's fees involved in the order of like $1,000 or $2,000. So that's number one. Number two is you really need to have like a team that's going to really build this, build the station. It's a one-time thing to build a station. Ours have costed about $100,000 or more to build. In both cases, we had in-kind materials donated. We had in-kind labor donated. Lots of people came up to the Arctic to help out with the setup of the flashline station. And you can read all about that in Robert Zubrin's book, Mars on Earth, the epic, problems that they overcame to build the station up there. And also for MDRS in Utah, we had a couple large donations to get that started. One of them was from the Musk Foundation back in 2002, but no, that wasn't the only one we got. We had other donations back then that helped get MDRS going. But also in kind is important. Like, we partnered with some company that manufactured the two stations panels and some of the other hardware. We got a lot of donated materials, donated furniture, things like that, fixtures. Sometimes you can just go into Home Depot and talk to the manager and get a gift card if you're a nonprofit or like a Boy or Girl Scout, So there's ways to do that, but that is important. You need to have all that support. You need to have the people that are the volunteers or the team that's going to do it. I definitely recommend getting volunteer community going. The Mars Society has gotten a lot out of just volunteer labor over the course of our time. So is the Moon Society, right? So I definitely I think that is the way to go to sustain these projects. The problem with having a commercial analog is that if you run out of money, what are you going to do? Like, you have to go find another investor or something. You're going to lose control of it. If it's a community project through a nonprofit, it's much easier to sustain, in my opinion. And then, the third thing is you need the science. You need the crews that are going to come. You need like people that are interested in coming to the analog. So it can't be too remote. Like, the Arctic is kind of hard to sustain every year. Utah, the reason we built the MDRS in Utah was it would be easier to have more crews. And that's definitely been true. It's a lot easier to get to Utah than the Arctic. So having an analog somewhere like Nepal or Bangladesh, that is going to be a concern of who's going to be able to get to go. Obviously, you're going to have the local community should be involved, but some of the global scientific community, they're going to need to be able to access that station too. So that is a factor as well.
Sounds like good advice. I'll be looking at that for Moonbase Lab Desk, where I'm going.
Excellent.
By the Finnish border in Sweden.
Excellent. My mother's family's from Finland, so yeah, I'm a countryman.
You're welcome to visit anytime.
I would love to. One other thing to mention about analogs and the Moon Society, back when the Moon Society was starting, I don't know if this was mentioned at all yesterday. We were talking about doing Project Leto, which was going to be a lunar analog base in Las Vegas. kind of like a tourist trap, but also a lunar analog. To me, that's still a great idea. You know, I mentioned it once to Robert Zubrin, and he was like, "Well, why have it in Las Vegas? That's not scientifically interesting." And I'm like, "Well, maybe the science isn't the only reason to do one of these. Sometimes, you know,
Yeah,
having a lunar analog as a public outreach project,
it is.
you know, that's valid to me, and I think that could be self-sustaining if it was run properly." So.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of questions and comments from Frida Taube. Frida, do you want to talk?
Well, I'm very interested. I put a notice down. There's a lunar surface science workshop, August 20th. Does the Lunar Society know about this meeting?
I didn't.
Science drivers and capabilities for lunar surface habitat research facilities. I've signed up for it. I've sent in an abstract. I haven't been rejected yet. It's going to be virtual, but I would think it would be of interest to the membership. The Mars Society presentation, and I thank you very much, is very interesting. I think that I don't know, an idea that sort of circulated earlier was that somehow there was competition between the lunar program and the Mars program. I think you've really shown that they really overlap enormously. That to support one is to support the other.
Absolutely. I've never been someone that's said that it's either the moon or Mars, or like moon or Mars, which one should we do first? The moon is a critical step for us to go put human boots on Mars. We have to go to the moon first. We have to get that experience. So, and I deliberately put up my background here showing the system that is being built for Mars to get us to Mars is going to the moon first. It's the HLS for Artemis. So like we're doing these things in tandem, and you can do both. And I'm proof of that. I've worked on both.
And you said that you're coming to Seattle, August 8th?
Yes,
I live in Seattle.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, you should come to the conference. Yeah, it's Thursday, August 8th through Sunday, August 11th. It's a 3.5-day event.
And the name of the event is?
The Mars Society Annual Conference.
The Mars Society.
That's the 27th Annual Mars Society Conference.
Yeah, if you'd send me your email, I'd appreciate it.
I put it in the chat. I saw you ask that.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, wow.
course.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
Only just to comment, Jim. I agree that Moon and Mars, it separates a lot of people who don't think enough about what our advocacy is all about, and I fully agree that, I just posted what Buzz Aldrin told us in his pedagogical manner in Hawaii, and you may want to look at it. Good chat. Thanks for those slides, Jim.
Thank you, Dr. Thingavelu. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, well, it seems, yeah, we have Madhu, yeah, I think that was the questions we had in chat.